Hey guys, CoffinSkate here, and in this video I want to talk about 5 games that got me into JRPGs, and believe it or not, for the longest time, when I was a kid, I wasn't really that big into RPGs. At least, I wouldn't really say I was that big into specifically JRPGs. You know, of course there were some RPGs I played as a kid. Of course, Pokemon, you know, what kid didn't play Pokemon? I was really big into Kingdom Hearts, then I played stuff like Champions Turn of Arms and Gauntlet Dark Legacy, which are both excellent sort of dungeon crawl action RPGs, especially in co-op. But other than those, like I've tried playing Final Fantasy as a kid, and it wasn't really my thing, I guess you could say. Oh, I was really big into Spectros as well. For those who, for like the 2 people actually remember what that game was. Yeah, so I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't really that big into RPGs. Basically, I was very selective, I guess you could say. But it wasn't until, like, I would say 2013, 2014 when I really started to fall in love with JRPGs. And, let me also clarify, when I'm talking about a JRPG, I mean, games with, like, with, like, predetermined character and predetermined story, fairly basic leveling systems to where you gain experience, level up, get more powerful and whatnot. Just what you would typically expect from like stuff from like Final Fantasy and games like that. So for me, like a game doesn't have to have a turn-based battle system in order to be considered a JRPG. I know if some people, or quite a few people, seem to think that a JRPG has to have a turn-based battle system when that is clearly 100% not the case. Because if this were the only distinction, then by this logic, Baldur's Gate 3 and Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2 are both JRPGs, and the Tales series, the East series, and the Kingdom Hearts series are all Western RPGs. Do you realize how fucking stupid that sounds? But anyways, so yeah, I wanted to talk about 5 games I feel really heavily got me into JRPGs, with maybe like 1 or 2 honorable mentions. I guess, I might as well start off with the one honorable mention that I can think of, and that is the original Final Fantasy on the PSP. Originally came on the NES, later got sort of remastered for the PS1. And then there's the PSP version, which is the version I played. Which, it was a great game, by today's standards, I'd say it's pretty dated, but although I really shouldn't be saying that, because, like, I just recently got the Final Fantasy Pixel Remastered Collection on the PS4. Wish I was one of the lucky ones that got the physical copy, but it's a whole different can of worms into itself, but, and, going back to that now, it's actually, it actually brings some nostalgia for me. And honestly, the game is still fun, thinking about it now, and especially with, like, the Pixel Remaster having some new features, like the increased experience and whatnot, so... But, yeah, so, the original Final Fantasy, excellent game. I absolutely love that game, thinking about it now, and I definitely want to do, like, a full playthrough of that game again, especially on the PS4, and it seems like the PS4 version seems to have a pretty easy platinum trophy. But anyways, now moving on to like the main 5 games. Starting off with a game that I gotta be honest, I still have not finished. It's a game I'd like to go back and finish at some point, but it was a game that really made me fall in love with like turn-based RPGs, I guess you'd say. Final Fantasy was kind of like the start for that. And, like I said, that was a great game. I absolutely loved the original Final Fantasy, but the main game that I would say really got me into turn-based RPGs was Chrono Trigger. I love this game, and how I came across this game, and this is also something I'm going to bring up. I'm also going to give like a bit of a story with some of these games as well, and how like I discovered these games. But yeah, so Chrono Trigger was a RPG that I discovered when I was watching Mutahar of Some Ordinary Gamers. he was streaming this game, and you know, I took a bit of a fascination with this game. You know, a turn-based RPG. The battle system is more of like an active time battle system, like in Final Fantasy VII, which admittedly is a game I also played when I was younger, but I never got around to finishing it. I'd say I got further into Chrono Trigger than I did Final Fantasy VII, because like Final Fantasy VII, I'd say is a much longer game, but that's neither here nor there. But with Chrono Trigger, I was fascinated with the story and how it had like this time travel aspect in it. The battle system having this mechanic where you use more than one party member for some spells, and then of course the active time battle system. And, you know, also graphically, even by today's standards, it's still a good-looking game if you ask me. And the soundtrack is phenomenal. Absolutely love the soundtrack of Chrono Trigger. Also, can't bring that game up without talking about the amazing character designs from Akira Toriyama. But I loaded it up on a Super Nintendo emulator and I started playing it, and I was immediately drawn in. You know, the introduction where it's, you know, you wake up as Chrono, and, you know, you have to go to the festival, and, you know, you get to do some mini games, and, you know, go and check out, I'm gonna try to remember here, go and check out Marley's new invention or something like that, and it turns out it leads into, thanks to some, is it Marley? I can't remember the names of some of the characters, so I apologize if I get some stuff wrong, but, the one scientist character, I can't remember her name, so I want to say her name was Lena, something like that. Again, it's been years since I played Chrono Trigger, so bear with me here if I get some things wrong. But the one sort of scientist character that is a friend of Chrono, you know, you get to see her experiment that she's working on and whatever machine, and I think actually Marley was like the princess kind of character. She gets sucked into the past, and you have to go into the past, and, you know, I was immediately drawn in from that. And then also getting to the battle system, which was very fun, and like I said, the whole sort of system where you can use more than one party member for some spells, or they call them tech in this game. I absolutely loved Chrono Trigger. I never finished it, like I said. I got up to the fight with Lavos, the version of that fight where it's the, you know, where you get to him early on, and it's like kind of a boss rush where like all its moves are basically, it basically just uses moves from bosses leading up to that point. I had no idea that was a fight you were supposed to kind of lose. It is possible to beat, and you get an ending for it, but it's, I found out many years later, but that fight you were supposed to lose, and that was where I stopped. And I had a save state for it, but unfortunately, I don't have the PC that I played that game on, played the emulator on anymore, so I don't have that save data anymore, but I have it on my, downloaded on my PS3 and my Vita, long live the Vita, and I also have it on Steam, so I definitely plan on playing this at some point soon. I might actually make that a game I play through this year, just finish it up, so, but I absolutely love Chrono Trigger. If you've never played it, absolutely worth checking out. Unfortunately, and this is why I don't have a physical copy, the Super Nintendo game, the original Super Nintendo version is really expensive, and even the DS version is starting to get really expensive. So, however, the DS version, if I'm correct, that version has new content, or was the version that added new content. That new content is also in like the Steam version, and I think the PC version, or sorry, the Android and iOS version. So, if you ever play Chrono Trigger, absolutely worth checking out. And it's a game I like to go back to and finish at some point. And I discovered that game when I was like 14, so this next game here I also kind of discovered when I was 14, and that is Parasite Eve for the original PlayStation. And so, this game, I remember one of my siblings was watching another YouTuber play this game, and was also watched like some of the cutscenes from the movie they came out with, because, little fun fact, Parasite Eve is actually based off a book, which is also got a movie adaptation. And so, I remember seeing like, or being shown some of the monster transformations, and then also kind of seeing the gameplay, and this is like a neat looking sort of survival horror RPG. I know this isn't like typically what you would think when it comes to JRPGs, but you know, I would still consider this an RPG, at least in my opinion. And I would also like to do a video kind of talking about what I would say classifies as a JRPG. Maybe that'd be a good video to do later on or at some point. But anyways, so I also remember my parents telling me about this game, and they loved it. You know, I don't think my parents ended up finishing this game, but um, they, you know, when they were younger, they had a PlayStation and they played this. And you know, they said it was very good. So I remember installing this on a PS1 emulator. Yeah, yet again using a emulator. And this won't be the last instance. There's one other instance where I played the game on an emulator. But anyways, I ran this on a PS1 emulator, and I was immediately hooked. You know, with that intro scene where, for one, the intro, the opening scene for this game is incredible. Like, the music is fantastic. The music in this game is done by Yoko Shimomura, who's most known for Kingdom Hearts now, but also is most known for Kingdom Hearts, Street Fighter 2, and I guess Final Fantasy 15 as well, which also had a fantastic soundtrack. But yeah, she did the soundtrack for this game. The soundtrack in this game is incredible. Square, please put the soundtrack on this game on Spotify. That would be fucking amazing. But anyways, we have that intro sequence where it's showing scenes from later on in the game, and then also we start the game up, and it's like around Christmas time, and you know, you're going to the whole opera scene at the beginning of the game, and then you start seeing characters or just the audience start going up in flames, and you know, it has this huge sort of thing where there's like mitochondria and what was it, spontaneous combustion. It was a very fascinating game in terms of the plot, but also the gameplay was so cool. It was a mixture of a survival horror game with RPG elements, in that it had, you know, fixed camera angles, which every other horror game had at the time. Fixed camera angles, had inventory management as well, so you couldn't carry like 99 potions in this game. Instead, you can only carry like a certain amount of items total. And there was, you know, all the weapons were like guns and stuff like that, and you had to be like within range. And this game also had random encounters as well. Well, I guess that kind of goes into like the RPG elements, in that there's random encounters. You gain experience for defeating enemies, and you level up, your stats increase, you get new abilities. And then the battle system was very interesting in that it was sort of ranged based when it came to, yeah, you had to be within range of an enemy in order to attack. And this was fantastic. You know, this was such a excellent RPG, and you know, the fact, you know, I'm a huge Resident Evil fan. Resident Evil is my favorite horror franchise of all time. You know, loved playing like the Resident Evil remake, Resident Evil 2 on the GameCube. That was the version I played, and also the DS version of Resident Evil. And so, playing a game that was like that, but with RPG elements, and for the time I was getting into RPGs, it was like a perfect pairing for me. And to pair that up with a really good story, great characters. If I butcher the name, I apologize, but Ayabria, I think her name is. If I get that wrong, I apologize, but you know, the main character was very interesting, and is an absolute badass. Awesome soundtrack as well. And just, if you haven't played this game, it is so freaking good. Love the monster designs as well. And also, I remember seeing this game at like actually at a card shop that sold video games as well. I remember seeing this bitch right here. I'm just now thinking about this. I remember seeing this bitch and thinking, why the hell does she have such long arms? That's really... I didn't know what to think at that time, so... but of course, now that I've played it, I understand why it's like that, but... Such a great game. If you haven't played this yet, it's... unfortunately, this game is starting to become expensive. I definitely need a black label. I definitely want to get a black label of this before it becomes way too out of my price range, but... This game is excellent. If you have not played Parasite Eve, this and the sequel are on PSN. as a PS1 classic for PS3 and Vita. So if you haven't played this yet, definitely check it out. Otherwise, play it on emulator. It's awesome. Alright, next game is Blue Dragon for the Xbox 360. I also talked about this in my video talking about Akira Toriyama. Check that out if you haven't yet, even though I don't think that video really does justice to how great Akira Toriyama was. But anyways, check that video out if you're interested. But anyways, so Blue Dragon. This was a game I remember. I initially played the demo for this many years ago, or like a couple years before getting the game, and I enjoyed the demo. But I also watched the anime, which for those of you who don't know, there's also an anime for Blue Dragon. And this game, that anime was pretty good from what I remember. I hadn't watched it in full, but I remember watching like some of the episodes, and I thought it was a pretty cool anime. And so I remember seeing this at GameStop. I picked this up with El Shaddai, Ascension Metatron, which is a great action game as well, on the 360, also available on PS3, and now on Steam and Switch. But anyways, so I picked this up, started playing it, and graphics were pretty nice. Story, looking back on it, was actually pretty cliche, but I actually enjoyed the story in this regardless. Great soundtrack. Battle system was very cool and very interesting in that all your party members, you only had like 5 party members, but all of them would participate in battle. There was like 2 rows. You could set them up in 2 rows, and it also there was also like the shadows, which they're kind of like, I guess the best thing to compare them to is the Personas from the Persona series. Hint, hint on that, by the way. But yeah, the Persona series, they're basically like the Personas to some extent, in that it's more than just like their shadows turn into these different creatures, and they get magic powers, stuff like that. Kind of basic. But that kind of leads into the battle system, in that all party members have like a shadow class, and they could get like new abilities that would, they would have their main level in which their gain experience level up and get more powerful and whatnot. Their stats would go up. But they also had a shadow class in which that's how you learn new abilities, new magic spells, and stuff like that. So it was a pretty interesting system. It's thing about this game now, it's a fairly basic RPG, but man, was this really good. About now, the soundtrack is awesome. The story really cliche, but was pretty enjoyable. And I had a great time playing through this. I also remember kind of rushing to finish this game before my birthday, because I was like, I guess I kind of had the mindset at the time where I was like, man, because I was really wanting a PS3 at that time. I was thinking, man, if I get a PS3, I might not go back to this, depending on what I get. So I was like rushing to get this game done, and I ended up finishing it the night before my birthday, and that was honestly perfect. So absolutely love Blue Dragon. It's a great game. I definitely want to go back and do another playthrough of this, especially after the passing of Akira Toriyama. But excellent RPG on the 360. And I'd grab it now before, I'd grab it now before they shut down the. I mean, actually no, this is one of the backwards compatible games, so so this game will probably stay on like the Xbox Live Marketplace, on like the Series X and S and whatnot, unless it's been taken off there. I know there were some games that were taken off the Xbox Live Marketplace at one point, and I think this is one of them. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, I apologize, but yeah, I'd grab this as soon as possible, because it is a great RPG. So, not the best one you can get on the 360. I hear Lost Odyssey is the best one, which I still need to play, but. And I did pick up Lost Odyssey recently for the 360, so I do plan on playing that at some point. Alright, next is Ni no Kuni for the PS3, and I also have this is my original copy here, and then I have a black label as well, which I picked up purely because I love the game that much. So, Ni no Kuni. So this is a game that I got a couple months after I got my PlayStation 3, and I remember after I got my PS3, I was definitely playing a lot of demos. You know, the first two games I had were like God of War Collection and Infamous. Um, so, and I guess I should also specify I got my PS3 in April of 2014, you know, on my birthday, April 10th. You know, I got my PS3 and I was downloading a bunch of demos, trying out a bunch of games and stuff like that. Ni no Kuni was one of them. And, you know, I was immediately sold on the idea of this game, and that it's a RPG, a sort of somewhat classic style JRPG, the Studio Ghibli art style. But actually playing it, it's not just the art style that is Studio Ghibli. It's the story and just it has a sense of charm that you typically get from like a Studio Ghibli film. Also, Joe Hisashi did the music for this game, and I apologize if I butchered the last name. But the composer for Studio Ghibli films, he composed the soundtrack for this game, and the soundtrack for this game is phenomenal. But you know, like I said, it wasn't just Studio Ghibli in the art style and also having anime cutscenes that are done by Studio Ghibli. Nah, it also just had that Studio Ghibli feel with the story, and it had that same charm that you expect from a Studio Ghibli film, and it was great. Um, you know, it felt like a classic JRPG as well, thinking about it now, especially having played more RPGs since 2014. Um, it feels like a very classic JRPG, but with a more modern battle system, and that the battle system in this game is, I guess the best game to compare it to is like Dragon Age. It's not really the best game I can really compare it to. It's not really the best comparison, I guess you could say, but it's the only game I can really compare it to. It's like a mixture of that and like a Tales game, I guess you could say. Nowhere near as actiony as a Tales game, but I guess it would be more like an MMO. I don't know how to compare I don't know how to explain this game's battle system, but because it's also been years since I've done a full playthrough of this, but man, is this game so good. It also has like a Pokemon aspect, which not everyone really cared for. I thought it was really addicting, but yeah, I love this game. It is a fantastic RPG. It absolutely nailed the Studio Ghibli aesthetic. The story was very interesting. I loved the characters. It very much feels like a Studio Ghibli movie. Just a one long 50+ hour long RPG, and it was a phenomenal experience. I cannot recommend Ni no Kuni enough. And if you have a PS4 or PS5, there's also a remastered version of this on PS4, which runs at 4K 60 FPS, also available on PC. Or for anyone who prefers to play games on Switch, this game is also available on the Switch. It's more just a port of the PS3 version, but regardless, it's Ni no Kuni on the Switch and Ni no Kuni on the go. Granted, if you have a Steam Deck, you just play the remastered version, but point being, Ni no Kuni on the go, But this was a fantastic RPG. It just had, that sense of style that you expect from a Studio Ghibli film, and also had a great battle system, at least in my opinion. A really enjoyable story, great characters, great soundtrack. Absolutely love this game. It has some great post-game content as well, so can't recommend this game enough. If you haven't played it, absolutely worth checking out. I've also played the sequel as well, which I have the special edition for. We have it right here. Special edition for Ni no Kuni 2, which I've also done an unboxing of this as well. But I did play through this. I really enjoyed it. I didn't like it as much as the first one. The battle system is a lot more action-oriented compared to Ni no Kuni 1, and that one plays more like a Tales game. So if you were not a fan of the battle system of the first Ni no Kuni, play the second one, you'll probably enjoy it more. I just didn't really find the story as interesting. The story didn't really start to get really intriguing and interesting until like halfway through the game. And I didn't really find the characters as interesting. So it still kind of had that Studio Ghibli vibe, but I digress. I didn't really like it as much as the first game, but still worth checking out if you are a fan of RPGs. You need to play the DLC for that though. And then quick drink break. Okay. And lastly, this game is very personal for me. because of kind of the timing in which I played this game. It was honestly like the perfect time to play this next game here. Once again, tried it on an emulator. I ended up asking for it for Christmas, and I got that exact game for Christmas. So that game is Persona 4 for the PlayStation 2. So this game, I installed a PS2 emulator on a PC that honestly shouldn't have been running one in the first place. I was looking around, looking for stuff to try, and I saw Persona 4. And I remember some YouTubers like Alpha Omega Sin, I think, might have brought this. For sure, he's probably brought this game up in a video. I know Pete Dorr and Happy Console Gamer have brought this game up in a video. As you know, I was looking for stuff to try, and Persona 4. I stumbled across Persona 4, and I was like, you know what? Let me give this game a shot. Let me try it out. And so I started playing it. I put it on. First off, the title screen. Well, I think I watched the anime opening. I don't remember if I actually did, but the anime opening was so stylish and so cool. Had a great this song for it. I think it's called Pursuing the True Self. I think it was called, something along those lines. Great song and great opening as well. Really intriguing. So get to the title screen. Has that amazing title screen music, one of my favorites in the Persona series. Has the title screen. Has the it has a really cool sense of style. And so I start playing it. It plays the cutscene where you're introduced to the Velvet Room, which is in that limousine, and you're introduced to Igor and Margaret. I still think that was the most perfect casting of any character ever, honestly. Whoever did the voice of Igor fucking nailed it in this game, and I miss that voice so fucking much. And by the way, for those of you who are wondering why Igor has a different voice actor from Persona 5 onwards, it's because the Japanese voice actor for him passed away. I think that was the case. I could be wrong on that. I think that was the case. I'll look it up and post the link to an article talking about it. If it turns out I'm right, I will post the link in the description, or maybe like the pinned comment or some shit. But anyways, so yeah, introduced to the Velvet Room, and then it kind of goes through like the setup and whatnot, which admittedly, going back to this game, the sort of introductory stuff and whatnot is kind of slow. It kind of takes a bit for the game to get going, but for this game in particular to get going. But once you start getting into it, you're then kind of introduced to like the school life and whatnot. But I only played this for like an hour and a half on emulator, but I'll get into why in a second. So then you're introduced to they bring up the Midnight Channel stuff, and then your main character gets the ability to go through the TV, or reach through the TV, and then it turns out go through, and then the main character gets his persona, and you're introduced it gets into gameplay. And it kind of goes into like this the whole persona thing and what they are and how they're kind of like the true self, I guess you could say. It was really interesting stuff. And then we're introduced, and then thrown into a battle, and I was really one of the things I absolutely fell in love with immediately when it came to battles in Persona 4 was the sort of, I think they call it the press turn system. In that this and the SMT series have this mechanic where it involves finding out enemies' weakness and then exploiting that and getting an extra turn. And I really fell in love with that mechanic. It really just added this extra layer of depth to the battle system, and that it kind of has like this sort of trial and error aspect to it, where it's a lot of figuring out or experimenting what an enemy is weak to or resistant to and stuff like that. I thought it was so cool. And then once you did exploit their weakness, you get an extra turn, and I thought it just made the battle system so satisfying. And so I got up to like the boss fight with Chie, and that's where we get into like the shadows, and how the shadows are once again like the true self and sort of like the person that these people sort of reject and all that stuff. And yeah, that's as far as I got in when I was playing it on an emulator. The reason why I stopped playing it was because, once again, this was a PC that shouldn't have been running a PS2 emulator in the first place, and it ran like ass. So, I was like, you know what? was I was really enjoying that first hour and a half. Let me ask for a copy of it for Christmas, and this is the exact copy. And it also came with, the soundtrack CD. So, definitely want to get the other part of this game's soundtrack. But man, so I got it for Christmas, started playing it, and honestly, here's another thing that made me just. Here's what also kind of made the game hit home for me was, for one, you play as a transfer student. At the time, I was going into high school I was going into high school. Granted, I was, completely different circumstance to being a transfer student, where you're going from one school to another, and instead of just going from, in my case, it was going from middle school to high school. In this case, you're just transferring schools, so you don't know anyone. But regardless, I kind of felt right at home with this game, and that you were just going to a new school and stuff like that. Granted, again, different circumstance. And then, I loved the themes of this game, and that it was just, the whole idea of coming to terms with who you are, and then also with the excellent battle system. I definitely fell in love with this game, and also this was just like the perfect time for me to play it, because that was around that time when I was really starting to come to terms with the fact that that I have severe depression and anxiety, and it was like the perfect time for me to play this game. This game really helped me through a rough time, and I absolutely love Persona 4. And this was the game that made me just fall in love with this genre. And also another thing about Persona 4 is the social life aspect. Never in a million years did I think that I'd ever play a game that would make me enjoy the sort of social aspect of, having the social life aspect in a video game. Having to, having to balance out your school life with going to dungeons and fighting enemies and stuff like that, saving people who get thrown into the TV. Which another thing I love about this game is the whole murder mystery storyline in this game. Super interesting. But, I somehow, Atlas made a sort of social life simulator aspect, or social life simulator gameplay super addicting. I found the social life gameplay of this game to be so goddamn fun, surprisingly, and super engaging, I should say. Because, you think about how this game works outside of exploring or going through dungeons and fighting enemies and stuff like that, outside of the usual RPG stuff. You think about, some of the other stuff that this game has, hanging out with friends, studying for exams, holding a part-time job. That sounds boring as hell for a video game, and yet they made it super engaging, and I fell in love with that aspect of the game. And on top of that, all the characters felt very real to me, in that they were just going through rough stuff and whatnot. Granted, Persona 3 is much, goes a little bit more into that, is more deep with that, and that all the characters, like, those who played Persona 3 will get what I mean. I can't really describe it off the top of my head, but yeah, this game felt very real to me, in that all these characters felt like, they had actual, real stuff going on in their lives and whatnot, and it was just, at that time, this was like the perfect game for me to play. I absolutely love this game. Persona 4 was a fantastic game. It's one of my absolute favorite games on the PS2. Probably as much as I love Kingdom Hearts 2. Kingdom Hearts 2 is still a top three favorite game of mine. No pun intended. It's still my favorite game of all time in my heart. No pun intended. It's still a game that, like, like, you get what I mean? Like, there are games that you would say you like more, um, but there's that one game that for the longest time has always been your favorite, and even though there are games that you would say you like more, it's kind of like that game that still holds, that you would still in some ways hold at a such a high pedestal. Like, sorry, we're rambling on here, but anyways, Persona 4 is just a game that is one of my absolute favorite games on the PS2, without question my favorite turn-based RPG on the PS2. And you know, in 2016, that was when I got my Vita. I got Persona 4 Golden, and you know, I only had the cart for it. Well, no, it was one of those games that came with like the stupid GameStop case. I ended up getting this case for free. So, but played Persona 4 Golden like 2 years later, and this was the definitive version of Persona 4. This version had new content. It you know, new content, new personas, and new dungeon, new ending. Just a lot of new stuff. And this was, for the longest time, the best way to play Persona 4. However, now Persona 4 is on everything. So now you can get Persona 4 Golden on PS4, and it's also available on Switch and PC and Xbox. And this version runs at 60 FPS. And you know, runs, you can play in 4K, I would assume. And yeah, this is the best version of Persona 4. So if you've never played Persona 4, this is the best version of the game. It is so amazing. And after playing Persona 4, I went on to play Persona 5 Vanilla, and then Persona 5 Royal on the, you know, the updated version of the game. And then currently I'm playing through Persona 3 Reload, which is fucking amazing. So, and you know, that Persona 3 Reload is so good. You know, we never had a good version of Persona 3 to play, and now we do. So, I know some people are turned off by, there's some things people take issue with Persona 3, but from a gameplay standpoint, Persona 3 Reload is just the best version of the game, without question. So, but Persona 4, this was just the game that got me into, not just turn-based RPGs, especially this game being sort of the crux of why my gateway drug, I guess you could say, to absolutely falling in love with turn-based RPGs. But this was the gateway drug for me for the Persona series and the Shin Megami Tensei series. So yeah, there's that. So there you have it. Those are the 5 games that I feel just got me into RPGs, or specifically JRPGs. And you know, since then I've played many other ones. You know, of course, you know, played all the Kingdom Hearts games as well. Played Nier Automata and Replicant, some of my absolute favorite games, some of my absolute favorite action RPGs. Nier Automata being my favorite game of all time, or at least top 3. You know, played the Trails games, or at least the Cold Steel games. I absolutely love all 4 of the Cold Steel games. Those are phenomenal. And started the Crossfell games, and we can go back to those. I don't know many others. I've played Final Fantasy VII Remake. I've played a handful of Final Fantasy games. I also did play Crisis Core many years ago, like back in like, the early 2010s. I did actually play through that, but yeah, Crisis Core, played that. Dissidia, Final Fantasy 1, like I mentioned earlier. Final Fantasy 9, which is currently my favorite. Final Fantasy VII Remake. I have Rebirth that I need to go through. I'm just trying to finish up Persona 3 Reload first, before I dive head first into Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I got most of the way through 7 though, and I need to go back and finish that up. I'm trying to remember what else I've played. I know there's many other games, or many other RPGs I've gotten into since Persona 4, but I'm drawing a blank on some of those. But I absolutely love the RPG genre. There's so many I would like to play through. Like, I want to play through all the mainline Final Fantasies. I want to play through. I want to try out the Dragon Quest series. I have a couple of those. I want to say there's a couple on my shelf here that I still want to have yet to play. actually Witch and Hundred Knight. That's a PS3 RPG. I have many RPGs for the PS3, many for the PS4, handful for the PS2. Oh, the Soulsborne series. How can I know those being JRPGs is, you know, a whole question into itself, but Soulsborne series, absolutely adore that franchise, especially Bloodborne and Elden Ring. Those are my top two favorites. So, but yeah, those are the games that got me into JRPGs, and let me know what games got you into JRPGs. I'd love to know, and maybe you guys might have some recommendations for me. Maybe I might find some stuff that I haven't played myself. So. Yeah, there you have it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys like the new background and whatnot. It's, you know, why this hasn't been the background for a long while. That's, you know, I'm not gonna get into that, but yeah. So there you have it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you all next video. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more content. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. I'm CoffinSkate signing off. Have a great rest of your day.